European Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmstrom wants to replace the Investor-State Dispute Settlement, otherwise known as ISDS, at the global level. Joining me is Clyde Hufbauer, Senior Fellow at the Peterson Institute, to discuss the ramifications such a move would have. Thank you for joining me, Gary.
Thanks.
So what is ISDS?
Well, it's an old idea, and it started with the United States treaties called Friendship, Commerce, and Navigation Treaties back in the 1930s and 40s. And it's the idea that when there's an investment dispute in another country, we should have a neutral arbitrator decide it, not the courts of one country, not the courts of another, and not by diplomatic means, that is, countries sending their ministers back and forth to resolve it. So it's an arbitration mechanism between governments and firms when there's some kind of investment dispute, basically expropriation or something that looks like expropriation.
So why did the United States not want to use the domestic courts?
Well, we're quite happy to use the domestic courts, but we're not so happy, or our business firms are not so happy about using the domestic courts. I'll take an extreme example in Venezuela. Everybody knows what's happening in Venezuela, but you can take other countries as well, which at one time in their history were very friendly to business, and then they turn, the government changes, and they become very unfriendly. And so this arbitration mechanism is meant to provide some certainty over changes in government policy over a period of time.
So why is ISDS so controversial?
Well, it's controversial for two reasons. One, it's an acronym. It sounds kind of bad, you know, like NAFTA sounds bad to people, so let's get rid of something bad. That's the kind of the populist reason. Underneath that is the argument that ISDS is favorable to corporations. And some people say, well, if it's favorable to corporations, it can't be good for workers. I disagree with that, but that's a common view. So that's what's going on. Dislike of global corporations, a bad acronym, let's get rid of it.
So one of the biggest complaints about the ISDS procedure is that it's done in a secretive manner. So why is this done in such a secretive way?
Okay, the terms of ISDS are totally public. It's in a bilateral investment treaty or a free trade agreement, and as I said, the old Friendship, Commerce, and Navigation treaties. So the terms are completely open. The secretive part is that when we come to an arbitration between the government and a company, you know, the arbitration is often, not always, secret. And the idea there is that, like any other business arbitration, maybe if you keep things out of the press, the parties might agree on a settlement before it's concluded. Indeed, that often happens. Now, maybe that's a mistake to have these arbitrations secret. Maybe that should be changed, but that's a very small part of the overall concept of ISDS.
So are there any alternative solutions that are viable and politically feasible?
Well, yes. Actually, the concrete objections are that, one, you have these rotating arbitrators. You don't have a permanent group of arbitrators, and we could choose a permanent group of arbitrators. In fact, the Canadians and the Europeans just did that in their trade agreement. Secondly, is the argument that, related to that some of the arbitrators are corporate lawyers, of course, and they represent corporations on other issues, and maybe they're biased. So having a permanent set of non-biased arbitrators might deal with it. I think those are the kind of concrete objections to the ISDS. Another issue, which I think is yesterday's issue, is that somehow this mechanism will be used to override environmental, health, and safety regulations. In fact, the modern ISDS agreements make explicit reference to the necessity to have good regulation and pretty well rule that out.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.